Welcome back to another episode of Sandy's Diary. We are now on episode 4, and today's topic is dating. This is such a highly requested hot topic. I think we all want to know what the secret is when it comes to dating and finding the right relationship. And in the past, I've kind of shied away from the topic because I didn't really date, and we'll get into that. On my YouTube channel, when it came to vlogging and sharing my life, the two topics that were pretty off limits were dating and family. It's just very personal, and there's a lot of trauma involved in that. And I learned in therapy that your childhood upbringing really plays a part and affects what you look for in a partner. So I think that's fascinating, and it makes sense that those two things were kind of very touchy, private, personal things for me. So I did ask for some questions on my Instagram stories, and I will get into that. But before I do, I wanted to provide some of my dating background or history, so you know where my perspective is coming from and you can make an informed decision of whether or not what I have to say can help you or should play a part in influencing your perspective. I think that's really important to take into consideration, especially if you're getting advice from people, because they can only speak from their experience and everything is a projection of that. I didn't really date when I was young. I never dated anyone in high school. Obviously, I had crushes, but I pretty much felt like the ugly duckling. And I didn't date until college. That's when I had my college boyfriend, and it was a very tumultuous relationship. I think we maybe dated fully for 9 months to a year, and then we were on and off for the next 2 years. This was my first relationship. This was his first relationship. We didn't really know how to be in one, and it was very toxic. It took me a really long time to process and learn and move on from that relationship. And because it was so on and off, it really felt like having been through 3 different relationships. So post-college, I didn't really date because it took me so long to understand what that experience was and what it meant and what I learned from it. It felt like I had given every bit of myself into that relationship. So when it ended, I just wanted to focus on myself. I started working, I had an income, I had money. So I wanted to do all the things that I could never do. And I was open to the idea of dating at that time, but I wasn't actively pursuing it. I really just wanted to prioritize myself. I also hated the idea of dating apps. I swore I would never go on them. I really wanted to meet someone organically, in person. And I just thought dating apps were so weird. I mean, I still think the concept of it is a little weird, but whatever. We're living in this digital age now. I was more open to the idea of dating apps when I quit my full-time job and moved to LA. So I finally downloaded an app and went on some dates. But I was a hopeless romantic. I still am a hopeless romantic. I was starting life in a new city, and I had very little to no experience, so the dates were pretty awful. I had to learn fast, and trust me, you will learn so fast. You have to. A lot of my openness to dating had a lot to do with how I felt about myself, in terms of feeling stable in my career and mentally and emotionally. Around 2021, a couple years ago, I felt like my career felt very stable and I was taking dating a little bit more seriously. But then I had a string of really bad dates. You will not believe. They were awful. I mean, they weren't even bad dates. They were just not so great men. And that is putting it very nicely. And it honestly put me in therapy, which in hindsight was the best thing to ever happen because I learned so much about myself and it really helped me figure out what I was looking for in life, but also in a partner. My therapist really helped me identify the causes of my dating trauma and how my upbringing influenced the kind of partner that I'm looking for. Maybe I'll do a part 2 to this if you're interested and share specifically what I learned. So yeah, I've been with my therapist for over 2 years now. I love her, but I was in therapy, I took a little break, and then earlier this year, I realized oh my God, I'm toxically independent, that's a thing. And it really hit me that I do one day want to get married and have kids, and I don't want to be alone forever. So I really started to take dating seriously. I guess that's my dating history. And now I'm with my second ever boyfriend, and he's pretty awesome. So I wouldn't say I have a lot of long-term relationship experience. I have a lot of dating experience. I would say I've gotten pretty good at having tough conversations and walking away from things that are not Good for me. Side note, I do want to add that during my 20s when I didn't date, I felt like everyone thought there was something wrong with me that I didn't want to date. I just wasn't really in a rush. And I wasn't someone who was interested in hookup culture. Like, yeah, it's really interesting how people speak to you when you're single. And I'm trying not to do that as well, unknowingly. Okay, let's finally move on to the questions. Here is the first one. Tips for using a dating app for the first time while looking for a long-term relationship. When it comes to dating, I think it's so important to have a strong sense of self. Be honest with who you are and what you want. If you want a long-term relationship, say you want a long-term relationship in your dating profile. You might not get as many matches, but you're also not wasting your time with someone who wants something casual. This is a really funny story, but I had a friend who wanted to see my Hinge profile, so I showed it to him and he was like, why would you put that you want kids on here? Like, take that off. Why would you put that you want something serious? Like, take that off. And I was like, first of all, that's what I want. Second, you're the one who doesn't want kids. And third, you're gay. So your target audience is not the same as my target audience. I'm definitely not a pro when it comes to dating profiles. There is literally so little to go on. So I would say spend some thought on it, but don't overthink it. I definitely had a scarcity mindset when I was first on a dating app. And I kept wondering if my profile was good enough. Did I choose the right photos? Did I say the right things on the prompts? But you really cannot compare yourself to other profiles. Just focus on you and what you want someone to know about you and put that forward. Moving on to the second question, how to know if they're your person and red flags to look for. I think this is different for everyone. For me, it's really important that I feel like I can be myself and I can be all facets of myself. Like, I don't think a lot of people really see my silly, goofy side. And if I can do that and bring that out, like, I'm really comfortable around you. That's what it's all about. I also think, they're the one when they're committed to you. They're committed to your growth. They're committed to your changes and who you're going to become. There are so many people who up and leave when things get hard or you have a bad day or you change a little bit. They're not the one. The one is going to be there for you and stay committed to you through your ups and your downs and through your growth and through your changes. If you want to get on the more practical side of things, something my therapist told me to do was to write a list of qualities that I look for in a partner. I had never done that before. And a lot of that had to do with the scarcity mindset. I was afraid of writing down the things that I wanted because what if I never got them? Or what if I didn't think that I was going to find a person that would fit exactly everything that was on my list. Like, I already expected myself to compromise, so I never wrote down what it is that I wanted. But it was the most helpful thing ever because it finally made me date with more intention and, I could cross guys off the list really quickly. Like, oh, this is really important to me and he doesn't have that quality, so why am I entertaining this? And of course, you can make changes to this list as you go and learn from your dating experience. In terms of red flags, I have a list here. I will read it off for you, but these are just like off the top of my head, things that I could think of. There are so many more. Even if you just Google it, a good solid list will come up. Someone who is inconsiderate. I'm a very considerate person, so I appreciate when people notice the details and really care for me in that way and that they're considerate to other people. The second red flag for me is inconsistent communication, especially in the early days of dating. That signals to me that they are a person of convenience. Everything has to fit in their schedule and they will only reach out to you when it works for them. They're not making time for you in their plans. They're not really prioritizing you. You're just there when it's easy for them. If they're not planning dates in advance and they're doing it last minute or spontaneously, that is a person of convenience. Like, I don't like that. Poor listening skills. No need to elaborate. The way they talk about women or their exes, if they call a woman crazy, that's a red flag for me because it's like, why are you calling them crazy? Is there a perspective that you don't understand, that you didn't even take the time to understand? Red flag. Love bombing is a huge red flag. If they're just piling it on you, telling you all the things you want to hear, that like they've never felt this way before. No, that is a huge red flag to me because that just means they fall really quickly, they get invested, and then they're going to pull away. Like, that saying, you want a slow burn, you don't want something that fizzles out really quickly. how can you feel so strongly about someone that you don't even really know? Like, what are they even really in love with? So be careful about love bombing. No. If they're not respectful of my boundaries, that is a huge red flag. The last one I have on my list is if you feel anxious when you're with them, when you get the butterflies. Moving on to the next question, POV on how long before becoming official. I think it really depends on how often you see them, how well you've gotten to know each other, how integrated you are in each other's lives. But personally for me, like if I see them regularly and they've met my friends and we haven't defined the relationship, after 2 months, I would get anxious. I did get anxious. Any advice on dating while working through commitment issues? I think, first of all, some reflection needs to take place. Like, understand where your commitment issues are coming from. I don't know if this is the same as what you're going through, but there was a time where I hated the thought of belonging to somebody else, that someone would have claim or power over me. I think that stems from like older daughter issues, but I realized that it just meant I wasn't ready for a relationship at that time. Like, I wasn't done prioritizing myself and putting myself first and feeling attached to someone, feeling responsible for someone. Older daughter drama again. At a certain point though, you will just have to push through your commitment issues with someone. You'll have to do the uncomfortable thing. It's hard because there can be a lot of misunderstandings when you're first dating, but hopefully you'll end up finding someone who is loving and understanding and patient, and who will work through those issues with you. I was dating this guy when we got into a fight, and I learned that he was pretty avoidant and shut down, and he ended up ending things with me because he wanted to work on those avoidant issues alone. And I was just like, okay, like how do you work on being avoidant in a relationship by being avoidant in a relationship? You know, like how do you work on your commitment issues by avoiding your commitment issues and being alone? There's only so much self-reflection and work you can do alone. It definitely helps to understand where your commitment issues stem from so that you can better communicate it with your partner. But after a certain point, like you're going to have to put it into practice in a relationship with someone. How priorities and the type of people you date changed between 20s to 30s. In my 20s, I didn't really date. It was very casual. I didn't take it very seriously. I didn't know what I wanted. I was just kind of like throwing myself out there and just seeing what happens. Like, what kind of guys do I like vibe with? Do I want to be around? In my 30s, also because I worked with my therapist on this, I have a much clearer vision of the type of guy that I want. But in turn, it also made me reflect on the kind of person that I needed and wanted to be as well. Dating in your 30s is another level. It's just so much more serious, especially for me, because I really want kids one day. The next question is kind of similar. How much does financial stability impact dating choice in 20s and 30s? I think financial stability is important at any age, or at least being financially responsible. But I will say in your 30s, it becomes much more important because there's a lot more at stake. There's more investments to be made if you're looking to do the traditional thing of getting a house and a wedding and kids. So very important. The next question, any ways to make dates more exciting? When you settle with someone, the magic gets lost a little. I haven't been in a long-term relationship in a long time, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but I would recommend doing something new together that you both haven't tried. Maybe traveling somewhere new together. I also think watching your partner do something they're really good at, like something they're passionate about, is such a turn on. I would also recommend taking a class together, like a class that happens weekly for about a month or something. I think that's really cool because you're learning something new, but each week it's also different because you can see each other improve and get better. I think an underrated suggestion is to take some space and time away from your partner. Like, go have some alone time or go travel with your friends without your partner. I feel like that distance does make the heart grow fonder. Like, I would come back feeling refreshed and so excited to see him, and like I'd actually miss him, you know? Like, I think that's important too, like having your alone time so that you can feel refreshed going into the relationship too. We're on to the last question. How to stay hopeful that someone is out there for you. I'm starting to lose hope. Okay, don't hate me, but I feel like the only way to have hope is to keep having hope, literally. You have to keep up the positive self-talk. You have to keep pushing and believing that you will find someone for you. And also, don't compare yourself to others. I think that's really important. And I don't know if this is kind of what you're going through, but from my own personal experience, like, I'm a hopeless romantic. I had this very like idealized version of what I thought falling in love was going to be like. They would spot me in a crowded room, fall in love, and approach me, and it would just be like out of a movie. And because that idea never happened exactly the way that I wanted it to, I thought something was wrong with me. I was like, why do I not get approached? Why is no one falling in love with me at the coffee shop? Like, how many times do I have to go to the coffee shop? And it's so crazy. I know not everyone believes in psychics, but I had a psychic tell me that my version of like falling in love or finding the relationship is not what I think it looks like. Yeah, it wasn't, because I avoided the dating apps for forever, but that's how I met my boyfriend now, and I'm so happy with him. I feel like I was also in a similar position as you, where like I still had a bit of hope, but there are definitely moments where I'm like, okay, I think I could be okay being single for the rest of my life. I think I could just be alone. Like, maybe I don't need to have kids. But that fear also stemmed from me sitting back and waiting for something to happen to me instead of taking action and initiative to make things happen. Like, if I really wanted this in my future, then why am I not taking the steps to go find it? And it is hard. Like, don't get me wrong. It put me in therapy. Dating is so hard, but you just have to keep at it. When I first started going on more dates and wanting to date seriously, I went into each date with like a little bit of expectation. Like, I wanted to at least have a good time, but you will learn that not all dates are good, and you cannot let it like eat away at you. You just have to write it off and move on and keep going. The more dates that you go on, the more that you learn what is right for you. And I promise that it does get easier. Like, you'll have such strong resolve after each experience, because it really toughened me, and it toughened me for the better, because I can communicate my needs better. I can be specific with what I want. I don't have to settle. And it gets easier to walk away from a tough situation or just a horrible, awful situation. Like, don't settle. Please don't settle. I like don't want you to regret settling. That was my thing. Like, I would rather like be happy alone than be miserable settling but have a partner. Some people thought it was really sad that it just became such a habit for me to like move on, but I took it as like, nah, this is awesome. Like, I can disconnect from my emotional trauma and do what's better for me. Like, I like in the past, I would stay in things way longer than I should have because I didn't want to feel like a failure, like I wasn't good enough. And now I don't take it personally anymore. It's like, it's not that I'm not good enough. Maybe it's not that they're not good enough either. We're just not aligned, and it's fine. When you shift your perspective from I'm not good enough, there's no one out there for me, to we are just not aligned and I want to find someone that better aligns with me, that will really help your perspective and your experience in dating. You want to find someone that compliments you and you compliment them. I don't know if that's exactly what you're going through, but that's how I relate to that feeling of losing hope. For me, it was just a lot of like internal battles that I was having, I guess, with myself, a lot of doubt and just feeling like I wasn't good enough to be in a relationship and no one wanted to be with me. I think these last few years from dating, I've learned to be less hopelessly romantic and unrealistic to more practical and actionable. Dating and finding a relationship takes work. I know for some people it comes really easily and magically, and it's like a fairy tale. Like, I had friends who've been dating since high school, they're high school sweethearts, and it's amazing. That's just not my story. Don't compare yourself to anyone. Live on your own timeline. So we reached the end of this episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's actually so fun to be able to talk about this side of life with you. In the past, I didn't really have much perspective on it because I wasn't dating. I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't learn. I didn't process. But now I've done the thing. I've learned. I'm learning still, and it's fun to be able to share with you. A couple housekeeping items before I end this episode. The Google form is still open if you want to submit feedback, questions, comments, anything. My bad if you submitted one previously. I thought I would get an email or like a notification every time someone submitted something. I don't. So I just completely forgot about the form and I just thought no one was using it. Imagine how sad I was. But I did get some responses through there and I reference it when I'm thinking about topics. So please feel free to submit anything in there. If you're listening on Spotify, the link is a bit.ly link. So after the slash, it's just send number 2 and then Sandy. And if that's too confusing, go to the YouTube video and look for the link. If there's a way that I can do it on Spotify, I will do it, but I'm not really sure right now. Let me know what you want the next podcast episode to be on, and I will prep for that. So excited to continue the series. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you so much for your patience while I got my shit together. Maybe I will talk about that in the next epi.